Well, good evening, good afternoon, everybody out there in YouTube land. This is 1122 Wingnut Radio out here for Anarchy Television. And I think I'm going to go take a short walk down to the pond. Yeah? You guys ready to go do that? You ready to go out there and take a short walk out to the pond? Huh? Huh? Yeah? Oh my gosh. You ready to go? You ready to go walking, ain't you? You ready to go? You ready to go, ain't you? Yeah. This is not going to be very long. I don't think. Just take a little walk out here, take the dogs down to the pond and walk around for a little bit. That's about as far as it's going to go. Ah, Teresa, Golden Gate. Good to see you guys. Yeah, like I said, I'm just taking them out for a walk. And as I know, hell, I just gave a little bit right here. I just gave her a bath, but still. She likes going down to the pond and stuff. So, and it's a kind of cloudy day today, which is actually okay. I mean, we haven't had rain in a while, so it's actually pretty nice, man. You see all the stained grass is just brown. So all the plants around here really needed the water. And plus it's been really freaking hot during the daytime when there's just no clouds in the sky. So it makes it a little bit bearable out here. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It makes it just a little bit bearable out here. Because I'm serious, man. Walking around out here with no shade, it's a killer. It really gets me all fucked up because I mean, I don't mind the heat too much, but I'm just getting to the point in my life where it's annoying. You know, when it gets to like 95, 100 degrees in the sun out here, it just sucks. You know, so I'm always trying to find things to do where I'm not in the damn, right in the sun all the time. So that's my thing. And Golden Gate, I was sitting there talking to my buddy John yesterday. He's another one of my radio buddies that live nearby. And I'm probably going to go take a visit with him tomorrow to help him out, do some stuff, go to his house and stuff. But when the temperature gets a little cooler, I am going to, put a fire under my ass and climb that tower, take the antenna down, and take the tower down, and so I can move it to the new spot. And when I do that, actually, I do need to repair the antenna also. I got a Mako 5/8 needs a little bit of repair, so I need to repair that too. And but when I do that and come up with a power supply, I can get back on the air again. And like I said, I've been procrastinating the hell out of it, when it comes down to trying to get all that stuff done and get back on the air, It's like there's lack of a power supply, and then also a couple of hurricanes kind of screwed some shit up. So, and I haven't really done anything about it. And because I just been putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. Because I really just plus I need to also that's another thing too. I'm taking an old deer stand, and I'm gonna build a. I'm gonna it's an old one. It's all it's been fucked up or whatever. But I'm gonna take the platform from an old deer stand, and I'm gonna make a deal that I can hook on the runs of the tower, so I have like a bigger platform to stand on instead of just standing on the runs of the tower, so I can work on the antenna or whatever. And that's something else I need to do too. I need to actually um, build that. I need to weld that thing up, and then I can use that to stand on when I'm taking everything apart and putting everything back together. Because standing on them damn runs on that tower just sucks when you got to do it for long periods of time. So I want to build that, so I got a big, pretty good sized platform to stand on, to where I can work on stuff a lot easier. So these are the things. These are some of these future projects and stuff that I'm trying to eventually just kind of all get done. Well, see, this is the problem with the power supply scenario. I don't have any fucking money. I am flat broke. I mean, I probably got $3 to my name right now. I don't even have any dog food right now, so I'm kind of hoping my uncle can help me out with some dog food. I don't really have a steady source of income coming in right now, so I mean, when it comes down to the money part of it, I can't buy anything right now. So I mean, actually, I do have. It's a power supply for a computer, like a desktop type computer, and I think I can probably rig that up to where it will run the radio at least. And but other than that, I've got to get a power supply, um, and I've got to repair the antenna, um, because like I said, it's like a couple of hurricanes kind of screwed some shit up on my. It's a Mako 5/8 ground, omnidirectional type thing, So but I need to do some repairs to it, and I can get that thing back up and working. Yeah, I think it'll work. Also, it's a 12 volt. I think it's got enough amperage and wattage to run the radio. Um, so I just, I'm going to try that out to begin with, but eventually I'm going to have to, I want to get like one of those switching power supplies, because I don't really, I mean, I've used most of my life those type of power supplies, with the big transformers in them, but I know a couple of guys that have used those switching power supplies. They're so much smaller, lighter, and they work fine. They haven't had any problems with them. So I might, that's something I might try and get, is one of them instead. But 'cause that's what I want, something lighter, smaller. You know, and right. Well, I'm looking around. And that's another thing too. I tend to look around even on the European market. What's marketed for the European countries and stuff. Sometimes they got some really good stuff. It's just not marketed here in America, and so I look around for stuff like that. I mean, honestly, that's how I come across the Striker radios, because I was getting away from, and that's something that I've done for a long time now, is I've gotten away from like Galaxies and, and Cobras. I've gotten away from all the traditional CB radios. So nowadays I use nothing but what I call high end 10-meter radios that I can modify and expand the frequency range. And that's what I like when it comes to, hey Indy, what's going on? And that's what I go toward now anyway. Um, I used to have a lot of tube stuff. I used to have a lot of stuff, amplifiers and radios that had, vacuum tubes and all that stuff. And I just got away from that. And I'm also, like I said, I'm just getting away from all the legacy CB stuff. I go toward the high end 10-meter radios, what I call high end 10-meter radios that are easily modified to expand the frequency range. I have had better luck because I talk sideband all the time, so I don't talk AM hardly anymore. I do, there's still a lot of people around here, locally and whatever, that still talk AM, but I don't really do a whole lot of that anymore. I listen, but I don't really do a lot of talking on that. And so I do sideband, and so I'm looking for things that, that are very stable on frequency, that's got very clear, audio. These are some of the couple of the qualities I want out of the radio. So that's what I look for when I look for stuff like that. Um, so like I said, I not only stuff that's like, marketed for American um customers. I look around for even like all, a lot of the European marketed type stuff, because like I said, like MFJ, I was looking at some power supplies that are made by MFJ, and they do some pretty good stuff. There's just a few other things, like I said, there's certain criteria that I want out of a radio or an amplifier or something like that. So that's what's really that I look for. What's up, Huckleberry? And that's what I look for instead of like going for like the legacy type crap, in my opinion, crap nowadays. It's like, you think about like the Galaxies, the Cobras and whatnot. They just haven't really done anything new. They've had the same old shit forever. And Connex or whatever. They've just done the same shit forever. And it's like they don't do anything new. So I don't really like it. And so that's why I tend to gravitate toward those high-end 10-meter radios that I can modify. And most of them are really easily modifiable. A lot of times it's just nothing but connecting a couple of spots on the board or removing a resistor, and that's it. And then I got expands my frequency range. So that's another thing that I like about them too. It's like they're 10-meter radios. They're so close to the CB band, which is 11 meters, and I like to expand the frequency range where I got 10 meters, 11 meters, and 12 meters. So, I got all of the CB band, all of the free band over there, like where the 555 is, I got all that, and then I also got 10 and 12 meters ham bands and stuff, which, can come in handy sometimes. Um, I'm not a ham operator or licensed or whatever, but I do listen and sometimes talk on ham frequencies. Um, what am I shooting? Nothing really. I just bring that with me, man, just because there's there's a chance that snakes and whatnot. I got to think about the no-legged things and the two-legged things and the four-legged things, and so I always carry something with me. And I was out here the other day, uh, just doing a little bit of shooting out here in the pond, sighting some of these sights. I got these sights, the iron sights that are on the 45 degree on this, right here. I got these sights that are the iron sights on the 45 degree, and I was getting those all kind of sighted in along with my scope that I've got on here. Because if I'm shooting close up, the scope ain't worth a shit. So I had to have the iron sights on there somewhere. So I got these 45 degree what do you call it, the Picatinny rails or whatever to put my iron sights on. So I was getting that all kind of right. And I was just out here, just right out here in the pond and stuff like that, just shooting across the pond and stuff to see where I can, because this is a pretty decent distance from here to the other side of the pond. And, I try to keep, you know, somewhere around somewhere around 100 yards as my, what I sight things in on, or less, somewhere around, 50 to 100 yards or something like that. And I'm not sure how far this is, but from here to the other side of the pond is a good distance for me. It's good to get my scope and my iron sights worked out. But when I'm out here walking around with the dogs and stuff, I always carry something with me. If you know, uh, it's either my machete or I bring this with me or something like that, just in case. Because I mean, there are snakes out here. We got diamondback rattlers and water moccasins, and just in case if there's a gator happen to come crawling around in the damn pond out here, so I can, you know, take care of that as soon as possible, you know, and whatever else, because I mean, like I said, anything that's no-legged, two-legged, and four-legged, those are the ones I got to worry about when I'm walking around out here in the property. What's up, Snook? Yeah, yeah, actually, this rifle, Huckleberry, actually, this rifle is actually something that my dad bought me before he died, and it was, you know, something that he wasn't able to give to me personally before he died, and so this is like one of the, well, actually, the only thing, because I really didn't expect anything, you know, um, any kind of tangible type of shit, from my dad if he ever passed away. And when he did, this was something that he bought for me a long time ago, and just um, never actually gave it to me. And when he passed away, they were going through all his stuff, and my uncle um, found it and passed it on to me. Because it was something that my dad was going to give me at one time. So part of it is, and I actually did the paint job myself. Actually, this was a solid black, but I mean, I did the paint job because everybody was talking about, oh, those scary black guns and stuff. So also, hell, I just painted it green. Now it's not scary anymore. But now I just kind of look at it like this too. Also, it's like when I carry it with me, it's like I'm carrying my dad with me. It's like when I go for a walk, me and my dad are going for a walk. That's how I that's how I look at it. It's like, when I go out here walking around and I carry the rifle with me, it's like me and my dad are taking a walk. So, that's my my mental state when it comes down to it. But Hold on, let me put my damn glasses on so I can read y'all's comments better. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, thanks, Snooks. Yeah, Indy's got that thing tonight, and um, it's going to be members only, but it's also like later on it'll be a backstage type thing. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't know if she's going to do any movies or not, but a lot of times we just sit there talk about a lot of different things, and it ends up going on for hours. So you know, for those who know, now you didn't know, now you know. Yeah, well, that's how I see it when it comes down to it. When it comes down to me and my dad just taking a walk. Actually, I had a dream the other night, and my dad was in it, and he was helping me fix things. Like you know, I can't. God, what was it? It was something. It was something simple, like the lawnmower was broken or something like that, and he was helping me fix things or something. I'm not even sure exactly what that dream was all about exactly, but it was just like what 2 or 3 nights ago. He pops up in my dream. Yeah, I'm not a member. When it comes down to, I'm not a member of anybody. Actually, no, I take that back. I became a member because somebody gave me membership, and I don't even watch that channel all that much. So I always got membership stuff popping up in my damn notifications and stuff, and I don't know. I watch the channel a little bit, not that much anyway. So, but I don't get memberships from anybody, or I don't go out looking for it. So I'm not really a member of anybody, really. Like a deer. Dude, I was sitting there last night. It was kind of sprinkling and raining every so often last night. And next thing you know, the dogs would start barking for a second. And I go walking out, and I've got this, and I took the rifle out there, and I've got a flashlight on it. And I was just sitting there shining down there in the down the hill. Next thing you know, I see like 6 pairs of eyes staring back at me. Freaking deer out there uh, wandering around. What you got, girl? What is it? What is it? What you got? What is it? What is it? Anything? What you got? Hmm? No? Yeah, see, that's the thing is I think I've got one or two channels that somebody gifted me a membership to, and but like there's this one. It's oh man, what's the name of it? God, I can't remember it, but these guys that make moonshine. Because I'm subscribed to a couple of channels that make moonshine and stuff like that, and because I like to get little pointers on how what they've uh, come across and how they've you know um, avoided problems or whatever else and stuff like that, and that's one of them is one of those type of channels. that I was gifted a membership to, which is okay. Like I said, there's some things that, they talk about on members only thing that, some information and stuff like that. They don't talk just like on normal stuff, which is actually all right, because um, I haven't set my still up in a while, and I haven't really sat down and tried to make anything in a while. But um, I'm always tinkering with things like that every so often, because I was like, if everything goes to shit, I figure a still is a multi-use type of a tool. And one of the things that you can do with a still is make an alcohol, or, just make really high octane alcohol, which is ethanol. And you can use that to run a vehicle, or, like I said, also you can distill water. You can, make tinctures, or, was it, essential oils and stuff like that. So I was like, that was one of the reasons why I got a still, because I was like, it's multi-use. It's not just a single use type of a tool. So, and then, there are people that are, that made a business, basically, making liquor. And I learned a little bit of the tricks of the trade by watching these guys that do it. And then I just apply it to my thing. So you've been dreaming about your mom recently? Yeah. I mean, well, see, that's the thing too. It's like, I'm not exactly sure why my dad popped up in my dream the other night. Like I said, it was like, I just remember it was like, it wasn't even in the area. Like, it wasn't at my house or anything like that. But it was him at a younger age. It wasn't like, at the age of when he passed away. So he was definitely younger in the dream. And, we were somewhere. I assume, wherever I'm living in my dream, but where he was just like helping me fix things, like I had a problem with the lawnmower. I remember something like that, and he was helping me fix the lawnmower. And so, what is up, Snapzilla? What is going on there, my fellow anarchist? Freedom's March. Yeah, if you guys ain't familiar, man, check him out. He does some decent stuff, man. He goes on, he does some talking, on different subjects, on the political end of it. And then also he gets into he's in it, he's into, um, like, was it boxing and MMA stuff too? So he gets into that kind of thing too. And, but, um, I've known Snap for a while now too. He's a good man. And I'm gonna tell you, Snap, I'm gonna tell you, you've definitely attracted some trolls over on your channel recently, which is, and sometimes it's kind of fun, because I'm over there modding, I'm just enjoying myself. I mean, I'll start playing whack a troll, because I mean, seriously, man, some of them guys, man, they just get really offensive, in some ways. What's up, Jason? And I don't know, I appreciate that kind of thing, man. I don't think, that kind of shit needs to happen. Because I mean, I know how you are when it comes down to disagreements. I don't, I know you don't mind disagreements and stuff like that, and debates and stuff like that. But when they start getting like offensive, like talking about your kids or some shit like that, that's when I'm like, that's not gonna fly, you know. And I don't really use my powers of modding all that much, but there are times, man, when these some of these trolls get a little too far, you know. So you're in Amsterdam for 3 days. Wow, cool. Well, smoke a big fatty for me and blow some smoke my direction. I could really use contact buzz. That's one thing I'm going to enjoy, man. I'm going to go over to my buddy's house tomorrow, and he might have a little something, man. He can smoke me out with, and that'd be kind of nice. Sit over there and bullshit with him for a couple hours or whatever. Yeah, I appreciate that, Indy. If you weren't subbed to him before, I appreciate you subbing him, dude. Because I'm like I said, I mean, you know, Snap is a good guy. I think he's a good guy. I mean, he's definitely a good dude. And that's everybody's too stoned to protest over there in Amsterdam. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here. Maybe I'll take a walk. Yeah. See, that's the thing too. Is like, I kind of wish, that type of trend would actually happen here in America when it comes down to that, like coffee shops where you can like got couches and shit where you can just sit around and drink coffee and smoke weed all the time. I mean, and they sell that. I mean, hell, some of those coffee shops actually got they grow some of that stuff right underneath the shop itself. Like the people that run it, they actually have um, you know, their own garden that they sell. KC, what's going on? I guess let's take a walk down over toward the with a deer feeder and see what's going on over there. If there's how much traffic is going on over there. Oh, a magnolia thing, magnolia thingamabobber. Also, when it gets a little cooler out, I'm thinking about doing a camp out here sometime. And been thinking about it recently. The only thing is just it's so freaking hot during the day. I mean, it's not too bad at night lately, but I'm gonna wait until it gets a little cooler during the day, so I'm not sweating my ass off. Just trying to set up camp somewhere, and I've got plenty of spots around the property and stuff where I can camp out at. I appreciate you putting the links in there, Indy. I really do. You know, Golden Gate, you know, he's a radio dude. He's a pretty decent dude. Um, you know, one of these days, I do want to get a bunch of these radio guys together, man, and do a live stream and get a panel talk where we're all sitting there just talking radio shit on a panel. But it's hard to get everybody together all at once. I've been thinking about that for a while now. It's just trying to get everybody together at the same time. Everybody's different time zones, and everybody's doing different things and stuff like that. Just trying to get everybody all at the same time. You know, I would like to have like 5 or 6 people up on a panel, so we're just talking radio stuff. And sometimes you get a bunch of us guys talking radio stuff, man. We'll sit there and talk forever. Just about radio stuff. It's kind of like how these gun guys, you know, all these guys that, you know, all these gun YouTubers and stuff, man, they'll sit there and talk for guns for like days on end. You know, us radio guys can do basically the same kind of thing. There's that path that my uncle cut out with that excavator not too long ago. Down there at the bottom where the creek is, probably eventually going to put a bridge right there. It's mostly just so we can ride, you know, our, you know, golf carts and fucking four-wheelers and whatever, you know, side by sides and stuff from over here to over there without going way over there and back around. That was what he was thinking in his mind anyway. Just Hogtown, what's going on? Like I said, I mean, you know, one of these days, I want to get a bunch of you radio guys together, and we're gonna have to have a live stream panel talk where we're all on the panel and stuff like that, talking radio stuff. Because there's a lot of people out here that are in the prepper mindset that really don't know much about radio stuff, you know, and communications is a big part of prepping, you know, or you know, on the prepper type of mindset. And there's a lot of people out here that really don't know that much about radio stuff. And you know, you know, it'd be nice to, you know, throw some information out to them and stuff like that, you know, on different things, you know, to help them when it comes down to it, you know, even if they don't get into it as a hobby like most of us, you know, radio people do. They can get into it just for like on a prepper communications type of scenario, and that would be helpful to a lot of people, because like I said, they're not really you got invited here, cool, right on. Yeah, some basics, you know, basic stuff, you know, like, you know, you know, depending on like if it's just a CB, you know, I'm not a ham operator, but you know, even if it's like some of the basic stuff like on ham stuff, you know, like on like the old Bofang, you know, walkie-talkie type, you know, stuff. You know, just how to set them up. Um, you know, how to program stuff. Like if it's a CB stuff, you know, how to get things set up. You know, what kind of what kind of radios are good for like a starter radios. You know, coax antennas, knowing and stuff about SWR. You know, just basic stuff, you know, even if they're not in it for the hobby and they're in it for like the prepper type of stuff, at least they will know how they've got some idea of what you know, what kind of stuff that they can, you know, they can get into, how to do it without just, messing up their equipment, like how to set it up, make sure the SWRs are good, stuff like that, you know, um, just basic stuff. Because I mean, honestly, I mean, there's especially the generations below X generation, which I'm an X generation, especially generations below me, they've had the internet all their lives, most of their lives anyway. And so you start talking radio stuff, and it's like they start looking at you like deer in headlights, and they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And it just goes over their head. Trying to talk about the basics and break it down to like the layman's type, um, the layman type speak. Dumb it down for people that really don't know shit about it. Because I mean, even me, I'm not an expert on any of it. I mean, I've been around radio for a long time. Put it this way, I'm 50 years old. I've been talking on radio off and on since I was 14 years old. And there's a lot of things that I've learned over the years, just little bits and pieces and tricks of the trade and all that shit. And but I'm not an expert, and I'm not like a technician. So even me, when you get, when some people start talking all this high-tech technician type talk, that kind of goes over my head a little bit. But you know, to talk about stuff more on a beginner type level, like I said, just like even on for those ones that are in the prepper type mindset, at least so they know how to, what they can maybe get some of the equipment that they need. They should try and get how to use it, how to set it up without destroying things, like without, getting the SWRs right, and how to, what kind of things, everything from the radio, the coax, the antenna, how to power it, like stuff like that. Yeah, no shit. Yeah, Golden Gate, yeah, where to get stuff. There's a lot of different places, a lot of different like companies where you can get equipment, a lot of different websites or whatever, and stuff like that. A lot of things like that, would be good information for these people that are not familiar with it, and it'd be helpful, I think. And that's the reason why I kind of want. I mean, I try to do a little bit here and there. I've done a few videos here and there, on on equipment and stuff like that over the years. But I have yet to have like a panel talk with a bunch of radio guys where we're just sitting here just talking, just talking about different stuff, on radio related stuff. And I think that would be helpful, you know. So that'd be cool. One of these days. Um and I don't know, I don't know if I don't know if I can't remember if my website is out. I mean, my email is out there or not, but especially for those that's got my email, which I do have a bunch of people's emails and stuff like that too. But you know, try and get together one of these days where we're all got some time to kind of do all that kind of thing, and sit on a panel and do that. But like I said, it's just one of those things is trying to work with everybody's schedules and all that kind of stuff. Black Watch, what's going on? because I'm pretty much when it comes down to me, I'm more of a CB guy. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm not a licensed ham, so I don't really talk a lot about ham stuff. But when it comes down to like those Bofang, those cheap Bofang walkie talkies and stuff, those are technically ham radios. I do use those and stuff like that. You know, and as far as I'm concerned, the FCC can go fuck themselves. I don't recognize their so-called self-proclaimed authority anyway. And technically, none of that shit that they talk about on the FCC is none of them are laws. They're all just rules. So they're not laws. So I don't really give a shit what the FCC's got to say. And eventually, it's something too. When it comes down to my television station, I'm still trying to work out. Like I need to get one of those old camcorders, like an old camcorder. It's got some RCA in and out plugs on it, so I can actually use that as my camera for my television station. And I just haven't come across one yet that I can afford. But I want to get one of those old um, old camcorder, like an old RCA camcorder or something like that. That's got those RCA type plugs on it, for ins and outs. Or even if it doesn't have RCA plugs, something that I can has outputs on it, so I can use it as like kind of like a webcam. And then I can broadcast my television station, and that would be something too. Because I mean, whenever I get all that set up, when I do live streams, because I mean, that's something else too I've been thinking about on the down the line. If I upgrade to a desktop or a decent laptop or something like that, when I do live streams like on YouTube, I will also be broadcasting live on analog television frequencies at the same time. That's just something I've been toying around with in my mind. PS2 connect, yeah, the old RCA connectors. That's what I'm talking about. Because I mean, I've got a lot of wires, like old RCA wires and stuff like that. So I mean, I can use what I already have if I do that. And that's another reason why I was sitting there thinking about older stuff, like old camcorders, like old, like even like, VHS or whatever, just old camcorders that's got outputs to where I can use the camera as basically basically like a webcam. And I can have that output coming out of the camera going through my RF modulator, and then I can, and then having that going straight out the antenna and broadcasting my signal out. Oh, that's another thing too, eventually, that I want to eventually purchase, because right now the RF modulators that I have now are the simple ones, like from back in the day when you were just hooking up like the old gaming systems. You had the choice between channel 3 and channel 4, and I've got a few of those. But there is an RF modulator that I want to get that they used to use back in the day in schools. It's just, but they have like, I think they go from channel 2 all the way to like channel 300 or some shit on television frequencies and stuff. And I want to get one of those because then I'd have more options other than just channel 3 and channel 4. And then it depends on what channel I'm on. I gotta build my own antenna. Depending on what channel I'm on, what frequency I'm using, I've got to build my own antenna. And so there's a couple of things that I'm still working on, and I've been kind of thinking in the background, and some things that I'm kind of waiting until I have the money to purchase them and stuff like that, and then I can get that thing up and running. Because like I said, if I get an upgrade to like a computer, like a laptop or a desktop or something like that, you know, it's possible that I can run the camera through the computer, and from the computer I can run that to the RF modulator and then out the antenna. And if I do that, I will not only be able to just share the video that I'm using through the camera, I will also be able to share videos, like, um, stuff that I've recorded, or, videos off of YouTube or whatever, and then broadcast that out. Um, and yeah, Indy, I mean, like I said, I mean, the old analog television stuff, man, it's just not being used anymore because they switched everything to digital. So, why not utilize it? And then, like I said, I mean, my idea is to kind of um, make it kind of like a two-way communications thing, kind of like a CB radio or something like that. Like if me and my neighbor have got the same setup, and we can sit there and use the television frequencies and stuff like that to talk back and forth to each other, kind of like we do on the CB, just using video instead. And it would be off of their infrastructure. It wouldn't have anything to do with the internet. It wouldn't have anything to do with, Google and cell phone signal and all that shit. It wouldn't have anything to do with any of that. Snap! I'm not in Arizona. I'm in Florida, dude. If you're talking to me, oh, I've been in Florida forever. Um, build my own desktop. Well, I don't really have the knowledge at the moment to do all that kind of stuff. It's not something that's in my wheelhouse at the moment, but I do want to do something when it comes down. I mean, I'd rather have a desktop versus a laptop. I'd have more options with a desktop, in my opinion, on doing what I want to do when it comes down to the TV station and stuff. But one of them things. What are you guys sniffing on? What is it? Looks like the deer was sitting there scratching. That's what it looks like. But I do want to do something. Yeah, mini computer. Well, see, that's the thing. A lot of stuff when it comes down to what do you leave that alone? It's not good to chew on. Leave it alone. Find yourself a fucking bone or something to chew on instead. I don't want you chewing on plastic or rubber. But my biggest thing. Oh, it's 73 there, Hogtown. 73. My biggest thing is, I don't really have steady income, so I don't really have money to do anything. So I've got to do things on the cheap, if not for free, at the moment. So I'm just working on things that I can do without spending money. But when I do have some money that I can spare and do stuff like that, I'll upgrade to something better eventually. But like I said, I mean, I'm just, the whole television station thing is as a two-way communications thing. That's my idea of thinking outside the box and another communications type of thing. Because I mean, like I said, I've said this before, and the old saying, a picture can say 1,000 words. And I've always had the thing in the back of my mind, if I could do the same thing that we all do on the CB radio or ham radio, whatever, if we can all do the same thing that we do on the radio, but using video, it would be better in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? I can there's just more information that I can get out other than just audio, you know. If I can add video to the audio, it would be kind of cool. And also it would just be interesting if more and more people started doing that, what it would look like on that television station, you know, what it would look like on your TV. Because I mean, you know, you can use a regular a regular TV that can still pick up analog signals as your receiver. So I mean, it would be kind of interesting to see what it would look like on the television if there's a number of people on there broadcasting, you know, and if it got popular to the point where a lot of people start doing it, it would be kind of interesting to see. And to see what kind of information gets out there. And then, you know, eventually all the haters and trolls eventually will pop in there and all that kind of stuff. It always happens. You know, so I mean that would also make it a little interesting too to see what it would look like on my TV screen. Um, you know, and then on top of that, it'd be hard for the quote unquote powers that should not be to stop us from communicating. Because you know, that's one of the things right now that really um, is uh, is the benefit of you know, like old analog. You know, because I'm gonna tell you something, analog is going to be one of the biggest things to combat this digital fucking prison that they're trying to put us all in. And we're probably going to all have to go. You know, if we want to do things off of their system and off of their infrastructure, we're going to have to go back analog. You know, and it would be kind of neat to. I mean, most let's see, getting more probably on ham the video messaging. I think it would honestly. I mean, well, see, even ham. You know, you have the ability with ham stuff. They've come up with stuff like where you can go, you know, keyboard to keyboard on ham frequencies. You can use what they call slow scan, which is sending video over the airwaves on ham stuff. And but you know, slow scan sucks. I want real time, like video. You know, like for instance, if this was being broadcast just out there in the analog frequencies right now, as it is, I want it, you know, somebody that's sitting in their home right now with a TV and they're tuned into the same frequencies I'm broadcasting. They're seeing exactly what I'm doing right now in real time, kind of thing. Slow scan sucks because it, like I said, it's in the name, slow. It is really slow. I mean, it takes forever just for one image to come up. And no, I want actual real time video like they used, you know, like regular broadcast television stations used to do, but just more like a two-way communications type of scenario. That's the idea behind it. You know, kind of like, you know, Golden Gate, kind of like what we do on the radio when we're sitting there talking to people. Can you imagine if there was a video signal along with that audio that, you know, when you're making contacts with people all over the place, if there was a video signal along with that and you can see on your TV what they're broadcasting and you can send out audio and video at the same, you know, to talk back to that person or whatever, and make, you know, I think it would be kind of cool. Um, you know, and it would just be, you know, utilizing the old analog stuff. Um, and I think it would be just neat, you know. I think it would be just kind of cool to do that. And like I said, I'm trying to get it all set up where, you know, if I can figure out the whole setup for myself, where I'm able to do it by myself, I will duplicate that whole setup with my neighbor or my cousin that lives not that far away. and give him a setup. So if we wanted to talk back and forth with each other using that, you know, like for instance, I would key up, send my, video or whatever, over the airwave, over broadcasted over the airwaves. And so if anybody's just on that same frequency, on that channel, whatever, they all, and tune into that, they'd all see what I'm saying. It's kind of same thing with the radio, but, I can sit there and key up, broadcast it. He can have it received on his television. And then when I'm done, he can key up and I can broadcast and I can see it on my television as a receiver. It'd just be back and forth kind of like that. And then I start thinking about like the tactical end of it too. I start thinking about tactical end of it. When it comes down to communications on the tactical part of it. If like, for instance, like, I don't know, like there's a whole bunch of Humvees running through town. Instead of like, just getting on the radio and say, hey, breaker, hey, there's a bunch of damn, bunch of damn Humvees running downtown and whatever. To my buddy, I can sit there and take a, shoot a live video, broadcast it out to who, to my buddy that's, tuned into the same frequency, and they can see what I'm seeing in real time live. And I just think that, on the tactical end of it, it would be better because then I wouldn't even have to talk. I wouldn't even have to. I'd just sit there and just show the image and stuff like that. But also, with all the censorship that's going on, with all these private companies like YouTube and all these other, social networks and all that stuff, with all the censorship that they have over information, we can, combat that by, giving, putting that information out via, just over the airwaves. You know what I'm saying? And it's not a private thing, I mean, whoever is just tuned into the same frequency you're broadcasting will be able to see what you're broadcasting, just like on the radio. But it would be something cool, I think. Shit, I'm look at the damn. Oh, C4T, what's up? Thanks, Andy. I really appreciate you putting the links out, man. I appreciate that. And it would just, it's just something I've been toying around with for a number of years now. And I've got a bunch of stuff that's just, when it comes down to the equipment, it's just I'm trying to refine it to make it like to where anybody can gather all this basically old technology, because they, it's still out there. I mean, since everything's turning digital, it's getting harder and harder to find stuff. But, a lot of the stuff that I found is through like, Goodwill or, thrift stores or, garage sales and stuff like that, where I find old technology like that. And, I can get it, pretty decently cheap. And it's still out there. You can still get it. So, I mean, when I get all the bugs out of it, basically. And, I want to make it to where anybody can just, basically plug and play, kind of like a CB radio, kind of like, I mean, it's a little bit more than just plug and play. I mean, you got to have some knowledge, like when I talk about SWR, which is signal wave ratio, you got to have some knowledge on that level. So you're not fucking up your equipment. You got to have some knowledge of what SWR is and stuff like that. And some ideas about antennas and some ideas about the type of coax you need and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's not like necessarily plug and play, but for people that are into that kind of thing, that have some kind of knowledge of that kind of thing, it would be easy to do. And, each one of us, see, that's one of the things that I love about radio is that we do not depend on these fuckers' infrastructure, like cell towers and and internet access and all that shit. We don't depend on that. We, as individuals, each one of us, we get the equipment, we learn more, stuff about the equipment, how to operate it, how to modify it if you need to, or how to fix it if you need to, whatever. And we basically start our own radio station. And each of us as individuals become the infrastructure. When there's a shitload of us out here. Oh shit, it's starting to rain. Fuck. I need to start hurrying back to the house. We as individuals, when we take it upon ourselves, spend our own money and our own effort and our own time, and in that type of stuff, we become the infrastructure. And that's the thing when it comes down to, oh crap, fucking rain, starting to rain. That's the thing about radio that I think is we got an advantage over when it comes down, because then we don't have to worry about the censorship part of it. We don't have to worry about, having a private corporation dictating how we do stuff. There are people out there that fear the FCC. I really don't. I think the FCC is full of shit. Oh, crap. Don't start raining too hard. God dang it. Crap. But, so, and that's the thing that we need to do. We need to get back to that. Basically, we become the community as individuals. Because I kind of, I don't like this. I mean, I utilize the internet and social media and stuff like that. I utilize it because I think it's just another medium, kind of like CB radio. Is just the only problem is I got to adhere to private corporations and their guidelines and their terms of services and all this other shit. They basically force you into these contracts, and you have to abide by that contract if you want to use their service. And that's the thing about radio, or even starting our own TV stations. We as individuals, when we all start doing it and start broadcasting ourselves and start utilizing it like that, we become the infrastructure. We don't have to adhere to, some ruling body governing what we do. And that's my thing. So I'm always thinking about communications as something that, because I'm honestly, like, even in wartime, communication is one of the first things they try to control or eliminate. Because if you can't communicate, you can't coordinate, you can't gather information and intel, or logistics. You can't get any of that stuff done if you don't have communications. And the only problem is that the governments around the world, they're getting a lot more advanced than old analog shit. So I mean, there is the thing that it's possible that they'll be more concerned about those type of scenarios and those type of things, and they won't even pay attention to the old analog stuff anymore. Because they won't think anybody's using it anymore. I mean, technically, if you go on the analog TV, there's nobody broadcasting on analog television anymore. So They're probably not even paying attention to it. I'm sure they do, but I mean, it's not a big priority. They're thinking about all kinds of other things, like cell networks and shit like that. So that's what they're really paying attention to. Sorry, trying to keep the rain on my phone. Fuck. Go under my pole barns. I don't have to worry about it. Probably. The other way. Let's see here. Let me let's see here. Let me close a window and get the air conditioning going. And set this thing there. Oh crap! Sweat my balls off. Oh man, I hate sweating so much and then coming in here and sitting down because it's like, God dang, it takes me forever to cool off enough where I'm not sweating in my chair here. That's true, Golden Gate. I'm gonna tell you, that's the thing. They want to own everything. They want to own everything. I mean, and they want to control our speech. They want to control our thought. They want to control how we talk to each other. Um, and that's the biggest part that I'm trying to think of alternative ways. Because if I can do the exact same thing that I'm doing out here on YouTube, but through like just broadcast airwaves, if I can do the exact same thing that I'm doing right now, doing that, just basically having my own television station, that would be awesome. And that's the idea in my mind. Doing the exact same thing that we're doing right now on YouTube and doing it over broadcast airwaves, like analog. You know, I mean, or something because like I said, everything's pretty much switched over to digital. I don't think we would be interfering with anybody. That was the biggest thing back in the day before everything went to digital. That was the biggest thing, when it comes down to us radio guys, putting out so much power or so much wattage or something like that. It's possible that we can interfere with like emergency um, communications and stuff, like EMS, airplanes, and police department and shit like that. That was a big thing back in the day because everything was analog, and you had the there was a chance you were interfere with those other types of services. Well, now that everything's pretty much digital, I don't think we would, on an analog end of it, I don't think we would be interfering with a lot of that kind of stuff. Um, I mean, like air traffic and stuff like that still uses analog stuff. Um, most of the EMS, fire department, and police department have switched to digital shit. So we probably wouldn't be interfering with a lot of that. It's just we'd have to think about air traffic, which, most of that I think is like on 2 meters. So, I mean, if we were, I don't know. I mean, you think about it, like television frequencies, a lot of them on VHF or UHF. So, it would be around those realms that air traffic uses, but um, I think we can avoid interfering with those things. I think, like I said, I got to work out some things and um, and decide basically what channel I want to do majority of my broadcasting off of. It's either going to be a UHF or a VHF, one of the two. I'm not sure yet. And I got to build an antenna. Um, and um, I'm thinking just basically doing a basic dipole type antenna to begin with, and or or a J pole, something like that, maybe. You know, something that's omnidirectional, and then I've been also toying around with the idea of making a beam. So, like for instance, if I just wanted to be able to talk to my neighbor, and me and my neighbor are talking to each other, and that's it. You know, rigging it up to where we both have beams pointed directly at each other, and we and that basically be just us. You know, but omnidirectional would cover more ground, 360 degrees, and depending on how much wattage we push out, how much range we get, depending also on how high the antenna is, um, stuff like that. There's things to consider. Like if I wanted to get all over my county, for instance, I'd probably do like an omnidirectional, just a stick up in the air, or a dipole up and straight up in vertical, and then it depends on how much wattage I'm pushing out, and that's another thing too. I got to think about an amplifier of some kind. Um, Now I've got some really, really, really tiny, uh, very low wattage amplifiers for television, but I've been looking in, trying to find like old, analog broadcast television equipment. See if I can find amplifiers or something like that. And I mean, that equipment is still around. I mean, it's not that easy to find anymore, but it's still around. You can still find them. They do get kind of pricey, but I think that would be kind of something that down the line, if I could afford it, that I would like to invest in. You know, you know, because there's none of these television stations use analog anymore, so a lot of that analog equipment is just it's not being used anymore, and you can find stuff. I've looked on eBay. I found things on eBay being sold and stuff like that, because old television stations, they were just retrofitting, turning everything to digital, and they were getting rid of their analog equipment. So I mean, stuff like that. Because I mean, I'm not necessarily wanting to do something where I'm like, I have shitload of range. And that's another thing too. I mean, I really don't know what skip would be like on TV. I mean, UHF and VHF is not the same as HF, so it wouldn't have, I don't know, it wouldn't have the skip conditions like HF would, but it would have some. So that would be interesting, actually. Seeing some skip conditions coming on, television. It would be interesting. It would be something to see and experiment with, you know. I mean, and like I said, if I can have the range just to get in, within my county, I mean, that'd be fine, because I mean, I can talk to my buddy that lives about 30 miles away, or my neighbor down the road or something like that. It'd be fine, you know. TVDX is rolling. Yeah. Well, see, I mean, I think it would be interesting to see what it would be like, you know. I think it would be interesting to see. And then, and if it got to the point where it was an actual like a hobby that people started, getting more into, I mean, I can imagine somewhere down the line, with so many people getting into that type of scenario, kind of like how radio, over the years, eventually, we'd have our own channel six. I can just imagine, you know, our own channel six on fucking television, what that would look like on your TV, you know, um, or something like that, or even like, um, how like an international type of scenario would look like if we were able to get skip conditions out of the country, and stuff like that. I mean, like I said, VHF and UHF doesn't have necessarily the range that HF does, like we do on CB and stuff like that. But um, I'm sure if enough people with enough, that's got the smarts, because I'm not, like I said, I'm not a technician. So, I mean, I don't really have all the technical stuff worked out and how to do things. In some ways, I kind of need one of those mad scientist type technicians guys that could help me out and help me build something um, that would work that could also, you know, not necessarily market, because I'm not looking to make money off of it. I'm more like trying to make it to where anybody can do it. Anybody can do it, and and I don't know. And I mean, if there was a way to make money off of it, I mean, that'd be kind of cool. But I don't know if I have the means or the technical knowledge to actually to build something that I can market. I'm not sure. I don't know, but I think that there would be a market for that if people started getting into it, and next thing you know, to become like a hobby that people wanted to get into. Because you know how CB is. I mean, CB stands for constantly buying. You know, I mean, it's like once you get into it, you kind of get the bug, and you kind of you're always wanting to get some more equipment. And you're always wanting to get a different radio or some more stuff. You're always spinning. You get that type of that bug going. Next thing you know, you're always getting more stuff and better stuff or whatever. And I mean, if it got into that hobby, if it got into that type of hobby, I think it would grow into something really big. I mean, it would be just as big as CB radio and ham radio and stuff like that. And we just got to avoid all the fucking government bureaucrat shit, where they want to regulate this and that and blah blah blah. Oh no, you got to have a license for this and blah blah. Fuck all that shit. You know, and I don't, and I sure still don't like the class system that's been developed when it comes down to CB versus ham shit. There's too many ham operators out there that think they're better than everybody else. Oh, I'm a ham operator. I got a license, so I'm better than you because you only talk on CB stuff. That kind of bullshit. That shit's stupid. I mean, I've literally had people say, well, hell, I'm better than you because my radio costs more than yours. I'm like, you're stupid as hell. You know, you're a dumbass for thinking that kind of shit. I think I'm better than you because I didn't spend as much on my radio than you did. I didn't spend fucking $1,000 on my goddamn radio. I didn't, and I still get out further than you. So I think I'm better than you because of that. Fuck all this. I don't even care. But I do think CB, in my opinion, is better than ham. But you know, uh, you know, that's just my preference. But there are certain ham has its place, same thing with CB. It has its place, and it has its uses. And, so, I think we just need to get rid of licensing altogether, personally. But there's a lot of, there's a too many fucking ham operators out there that want to keep the licensing thing going because, they think that, because you got a license that you know more and all that other stuff. Because I mean, tell you, um, you know, there are places like Channel 6, the Super Bowl, like on CB, there are that same type of shit on ham radio too. And the same type of jerks and assholes and haters and trolls and shit that on CB, they are on ham also. And quite honestly, a lot of the troublemakers on CB are ham operators, which is funny because they sit there and try and say that, we're the rednecks of the fucking radio world, you know, but yet, you get ham operators coming over on CB starting shit, which is, what the fuck? You got a license, you spend money and you got all this damn license and all this shit. You got access to all these other frequencies and bandwidths, but yet you come to CB band to start shit. What the fuck? And then you want to complain if we over in the CB band world go over to ham frequencies and start talking, then you want to pitch a fucking fit. Oh, fuck you. I don't, it just drives me nuts. I fucking can't stand all that fucking especially the legacy, the sad hams and all that shit, the legacy type uh, ham operators and stuff. Think that they're just better than everybody else because they've got a license. That license doesn't make you any better. It's just like goddamn car driving. Just because you have a license to drive a car doesn't make you a fucking safe driver. You know what I'm saying? There's plenty of people that get in wrecks all the goddamn time, and they got a license. So the jackasses out there that sit there and talking about fucking gun control and shit like that. There's more people that die in car accidents in this fucking nation than fucking from guns. Why aren't they fucking sitting there? Well, we need to fucking have, car regulations where we got to stop people from driving, blah, 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 which, if they get their way, they'd do that. They want us to all to stop driving. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, they feel entitled. That is the thing too. They feel entitled. And, and I don't I think all that shit's stupid. You know, as far as I'm concerned, it's just one transceiver trying to communicate with another transceiver. That's all it is. Doesn't matter what frequency range, doesn't matter what bandwidth it is. It doesn't fucking matter. It's just one transceiver trying to talk to another transceiver, and that's it. That's like me and you, Golden Gate, right now. Like you're on your fucking equipment right now. You're texting on it. I'm seeing it through the chat, and I'm talking back to you. That's just basically one transceiver talking to another. I don't see myself better than you, because hell, I'm on a cell phone, and so I'm better than you. God damn it, or like for instance, I'm on a fucking desktop. That means I'm better than you because you only talk on a cell phone. Fuck that bullshit. That's exactly where that stuff is. It's on the same level, and it's just stupid. But you talk about the younger generation. Most of them all are, don't know much about radio, and that's why and that's why I kind of basically started my channel in the first place. Is basically to get people at least, to see something about radio stuff. For a lot of years at the beginning of my channel, that's all I ever did was just do basically video gates of radio conversations and stuff like that. That's all I did. A lot of times I would have a conversation with somebody and another state or another country or something like that and record the conversation, the other person on the other end would be doing the exact same thing. I would, download the video, and they can sit there and watch my video of our conversation. They can hear what they sound like on my radio over here in Florida, and then they can download their video of the same conversation. I can hear what I sound like on their radio in the fucking UK. You know what I'm saying? And that was basically, what I was doing at the beginning, and that was that, or something like that, or just getting people, you know, you know, I don't know. Some people have just never been exposed to radio at all. And that was another thing too. I was, just even using my YouTube channel. I was kind of like just exposing people, especially younger generation that's never been around it, to radio, you know, and I did that for a short period of time, because I was years ago, back when, back in 2020 or something like that, I was, like before 2020, like, around, well, it was probably around 2018 or some shit like that, 2017 or something like that. I was on Facebook for a small period of time, and I was a part of a lot of radio groups on Facebook, and we do that same exact thing. I would, just do video gates of conversations of people, with people, and they would do the exact same thing, and we'd share those videos so we can hear what we sound like in each other's radio, and through that video and stuff. So I mean, it was fun on that end of it, because like I said, it's fun to know what I sound like in somebody else's radio, where I'm like states or even countries away from each other, or oceans away from each other. You know what I'm saying? Um, so I think that's kind of fun, because I personally, I really enjoy, when it comes down to radio. That's the reason why I'm kind of really sensitive about audio, like here on YouTube. Um, I'm really sensitive about audio. I always want a good microphone because I want my audio to be clear. I don't want it to be breaking up and choppy, sound robotic or all that sort of shit. You know what I mean? So I'm always thinking of that, and I enjoy hearing other people's really clear audio also. And so that was one of the things. It's like, for instance, I wanted to know what I sound like to those other people where they're at, going over large distances away, um, through the area, radio waves and stuff. So that helps me also. Like, for instance, like, um, I was having some problems with my microphone at one time, and I didn't realize it. And like, my buddy who's on the other end is like, yeah, the radio, the audio sounds a little this or a little that or something. Sounds like you're, underwater, or it sounds like you're in a, in a echo room. You're in a fucking in a tunnel or some shit like that. It's that there are some good descriptive ways to describe what it sounds like, but I won't know exactly unless I hear it for myself. You know what I mean? And if I hear it for myself, then I can do some, um, kind of like some deductive reasoning on what's causing my audio to sound like that, and then I can turn around and I can fix it. It's like, okay, well, if it's got the symptoms of this, like, for instance, if it sounds like, you know, uh, uh, sounds like I've swallowed the microphone, or sounds like I'm underwater. These are descriptive things about the audio that I can actually deduct on what is causing my audio to sound like that, and then I can go in and I can try and correct it or fix whatever's causing that. And that was one of the reasons why I enjoyed it. It's like hearing what I sound like in other people's equipment, because then I can figure out, like, okay, well, I sounded like shit right then, so okay, I need to fix that, or I need to get a different microphone, or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And you know, but I've been, like, for instance, I mean, hell, I mean, I've got I've got my, and I still, I, I've got my old radio right here. I just don't have it all hooked up. I mean, I've got an old D104 and my Striker sitting here, just all dusty and shit. Needs to be cleaned off. But I'll just sitting here waiting for me to get the antenna and all that stuff hooked up, and eventually I can get back on the air with that. But you know, and then one of these days I'm gonna put one in my truck. But I got to get some money for that because um, I've got a backup radio. I've got like an old was it RCA 2510, just basically a backup radio. I don't know if I want to put that in my truck or not, but what I would like to get is a Anytone Quad 6 radio, and that's what I would like to put in the truck because I mean it's a small size type radio. Like it's just a smaller size, and it won't take up as much room, and that's what I would like to put in the truck. And I've got plenty of antennas for the truck. I need to get some coax and stuff like that for the truck also. And then plus those Anytones, man, they, the newer ones anyway, they push out quite a bit of wattage right out of the radio itself. So, I mean, I don't have to use a linear like an amplifier or anything like that, which, I've used amplifiers in the past and stuff like that. And, s- you know, I've had good luck and I've had bad luck. Um, and like I said, I've got probably about a dozen amplifiers, like, like mobile type amplifiers sitting in my storage over there that all need some work done to it. They all need something because they're not working right. Like either they need like, I don't know, they're probably like a resistor or a transistor or something like that's blown, or a fucking pill's blown or something like that's on it. So, I mean, if I ever get to the point where I can get them repaired, that'd be kind of nice. But I've got probably about a dozen different damn amplifiers back there um, that I don't use anymore, just because I've something, either it was operator error or something happened and something blew, and so I just really just use just barefoot radios. And majority of the stuff that I use nowadays, like these high end 10-meter radios, they push out quite a bit of wattage right out of the radio itself. Like, I mean, that Striker, I can probably get, I don't know, probably 60 or more watts right out of the radio. And that's like the first generation Striker also. So, I mean, if I would get like the more uh, up to date Strikers, I think some of those can get up to like 90 to 100 watts straight out of the radio. And like those like the Anytone Quad 6, I think I can get close to 50 or 60 watts straight out of the radio. And I think the newer ones, I think you can get a little bit more out of them. Um, and then you can also modify them and put some better finals in them or something like that. So, I mean, there's ways to modify them. I mean, say, man, look at some of these South American and Mexican, you know, guys that modify their radios to put all the noise toys and shit in them. Dude, they'll sit there and, modify it where it's like got damn two pills being pushed and all these noise toys and lights and shit like that on them. You know, that's pretty interesting. I love modifying stuff, and I love the idea of modifying shit. You know what I mean? Because I mean, honestly, these radio manufacturers, they're just not putting out exactly what I want, and they're not putting out exactly what people that use radios really want. That's why so many people end up modifying them. And doing something different to them or something like that to get them like they really want, and that's the problem. It's like I really wish like something like, like these Bofang manufacturers and stuff like that put off, these these little Bofang radios right here. I really wish like these manufacturers or manufacturers like them would make some walkie-talkies, because they used to back in the day. There used to be a walkie-talkie back in the day. They don't make them anymore. But they used to have a God, what was it? Um God, I can't remember the brand name. But anyway, there used to be a radio manufacturer that made these walkie-talkies that were 10, 11, and 12-meter radios, and they were all mode, AM, FM, and sideband, both the upper and lower sideband. And, they were, handheld walkie talkies. I really wish some of these, like, even these cheap Chinese radio manufacturers would make a radio like that. Because, I mean, honestly, I know a lot of people, including myself, that would love to have a radio like that, a modern radio like that. Because I mean, I would love to have a walkie-talkie that I can, use on 11 meters, use sideband, and that would be pretty cool. I just wish they would do that, but they haven't done it yet. I think that that would be there's a market for it, so I don't know why they don't do that. But I think it would be interesting. Because like I said, I know a lot of people, including myself, that would definitely get one of those or a few of them. You know, you know, even I know a lot of people that do like was it those what do you call them, those guys that drive around in jeeps out there and out in the outback and all that shit, or not out in the woods and all that other stuff. A lot of these guys, they I know a lot of these guys, man, they would use like the Bofang, the ham radios, or something similar to that, or marine radios. I know a lot of guys around here, they use the marine radios when they go dog hunting, when they use their dogs to go hunting and shit. Because marine radios, they have a few more frequency range to pick from, and then on top of that, some of them push out quite a bit of wattage. So I know a lot of people, but the only thing is that they're technically marine radios. So I mean, the powers that should not be, if they really wanted to get a bug up their ass, oh, you're using a marine radio on land. Oh my God, that's a no, that kind of shit. So, but I know a lot of guys that use those when they go hunting. They have those marine radios in their truck. But like I said, those like a handheld walkie-talkie. What's up, Wolverines? A handheld walkie-talkie that's 11, no, a 10, 11, and 12-meter. Also, all mode, AM, FM, and single sideband, both upper and lower. That would be, to me, that would be awesome. And it wouldn't have to do very much. I mean, maybe 5 watts or something like that. You think about like and with a detachable antenna where you can change antennas. If you wanted to, you can hook that radio up to a base antenna. You can, put a linear in line if you wanted to. See that there's so many different options you can do with something like that. And even if it didn't do very much wattage out of the radio, it'd be still useful, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Because but like the newer stuff, like kind of like more of the solid state, newer circuitry, like kind of like the not the point to point stuff, but the the surface mount type technology. You know what I mean? The circuit board and stuff. And it'd be nice, or even some of these, even something like a walkie talkie like that that could be, um, you know, modified, through the computer or something like that. You know what I mean? Where you can, you know, receive and transmit and all that. And that's the thing, Wolverine. It would be. I wish something like one of those Chinese manufacturers, something like that. I mean, these they are Chinese made, and then you got to think about the China, fucking, you know, Chinese government and blah blah blah, all those stuff. But something like one of those, like a Bofeng type, manufacturers or something like that. I mean, like I said, I think there's a market for that type of stuff. I just don't know why some of these radio manufacturers don't get into that kind of thing. Um, a lot of them, that's why I've just gotten away from. I mean, I don't know why, like Anytone or which Striker is part. I think is also. I think Anytone and Striker are like the same company. I don't know why those manufacturers don't get into that kind of thing. Making like handheld radios that are all mode 10, 11, 12 meters. I don't know why they don't do that kind of thing. I think that there's a market for it, and I don't know why they don't do it. And I've asked, I've you know, I know they're not watching my videos, so I mean, but still, um, I've said it. I've like, I've said it a few times on some of my videos. Please, you guys need to get on the ball, because none of these other old, established like, um, you know, um, legacy type radio manufacturers are not doing it anymore. Like the old Cobras and Galaxies, they're just not making anything good anymore. They're not making anything good anymore for some reason. They've stuck with the same old crap that they've done for 50 years, and that's all they've done. Um, like Cobra, Galaxies, Connex, there's a few others, but RCA, um, or not RCA, um, anyway, I just don't know why they haven't, come with the times, in my opinion. Yeah, the old Nextel, the beep beep is what I used to call them. The beep beep, they had the walkie talkie option on that thing using the cell networks and stuff. Um, there is a radio. It's a Chinese made one that is like that. It's just a regular walkie talkie thing. It uses the cell networks, and it's just it's not a cell phone, but it looks like a little tiny walkie talkie, and it does the same thing as like the old beep beep back in the day. Um, you know, but like I said, it utilizes the cell networks. So I mean, you're still dependent on the cell networks. You're still dependent on their infrastructure. That's the only thing, the only problem I have with it. But other than that, I mean, and plus you have to, there's a subscription involved. So it's like, you got to pay them, I think you get like a certain amount of time when you first buy it where you don't have to make any payments. But then there's like a subscription, like a yearly subscription. You got to pay every fucking year on it, or something like that, or every month or something. I can't remember, but it's still, that's the part I want to avoid altogether. That's the reason why I like, um, you know, not utilizing their networks, because there won't be a fee every fucking month. You won't have to utilize their networks and stuff, which, they have control over. Um, that's the reason why I lean toward, the old analog shit, because, we don't have, there isn't that. Once you buy the equipment, that's it. It's not like you got to pay rent on it every fucking month or every year or anything like that for the rest of your life. No, you buy the equipment, that's it, no more. And then then you can broadcast out and all that shit. Um, you know, uh, and you just but the only thing was the analog. You got you have limitations, which I've learned to use over the years. Like I'll tell you, I'll give you an example. It's like this is a a map that I drew up years ago. But this is like, okay, this is generally where I'm at here in Florida, in Panama City. All these tacks is people that I would talk to all the time, on a general basis, for when the conditions are there, and you think about it, and this is not even a full map. This only goes halfway. This is not even all the way on the other side of Texas. I mean, there's still more of it, but this is just the United States and Canada. Like, I mean, there's a buddy of mine that lives over here in Saskatchewan, Canada. I mean, talking from there to Florida, we were talking like we were next door neighbors every fucking day. You know what I mean? And like all these different states, I would talk to on a normal basis like they were like next door neighbors. And when the conditions aren't, like skip conditions aren't good, this is more of a localized thing. It's like, Panama City down here where I'm at, it's like, and this is just generally the area around. Um, that would be when the skip conditions are. That's basically what I would talk to. But otherwise, I would get all over the US, all over, international. I'd get into Canada, you go down here into West Indies, and then, in the mornings, you get Europe and all that other shit over on the other side of the ocean here. And then toward the evenings, you get California, Hawaii, New Zealand, Australia, shit like that. So, I mean, this is, but it has its limitations. You got to work with Mother Nature, which, when Mother Nature comes into my town, I just give her a smack on the butt and she lets me talk, which is good, but it's not something that you can just pick up. It's not like a cell phone. You can just pick up your phone and talk to wherever. You got to work with Mother Nature, and but over the years I've learned to do it, and then also, you gotta understand Mother Nature on that end of it. Also, like I said, you know, um, every 11 years the sun goes through these cycles. Every 11 years, when you get at the peak of that cycle, that's when you can talk pretty much worldwide. All right, you can talk outside of your local area and internationally and stuff like that. On the downside, on the low end of that cycle, it's pretty much just local, within 100 or so miles, and that's about as far as you can get out. So you gotta, every 11 years and stuff like that, you got these cycles that the planet and the sun goes through. Um, you just work with that. You know, um, you know, there is that limitation. Um, then you got to think about like weather conditions and stuff like that. Sometimes that has an effect because then it plays around with the ionosphere and stuff like that, and then that can mess up your signals and stuff like that. And if it's just CB, HF has a longer range as it is, but it also matters like on your geographic location, on how your elevation, how high you are, how high the antenna is, and blah blah blah. If you got mountains around you, blah whatever, whatever, whatever. I mean, there are things to consider when it comes down to it. So I mean, there are things you got to think about. Um, got to think about what you're going to use the radio for. Um, well, Wolverine. Okay, when it comes to okay, he said at night is the signal better, like AM or not much interference during the day. No. Now Nighttime skip or nighttime conditions are not that common. Usually, it follows the sun. Um, Now, it's nighttime conditions does happen, but it's not as common when it comes down to like getting skip conditions, like where you're talking outside of your local area. Like for instance, if right now, as far as I know, we're still in that peak time when it comes down to that 11-year cycle. Um, now, um, the reason why I say it kind of follows the sun is because, like for instance, when it's like um, uh, it's daytime in the UK, for instance, and it's still nighttime over here. Um, I don't hear the UK, but as soon as the sun comes up and touches my antenna, I'll start hearing the UK. All right. And when the sun travels this direction to the west, and I won't hear anything to the west of me, like I won't hear anything like in Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, or anything like that until the sun starts coming up over there. That's just how it just kind of follows the sun. Um, and that's just how the RF kind of see it bounces off the earth up in the ionosphere, kind of like a zigzag pattern up and down, and that's how it kind of travels through the atmosphere. And for some reason, it just follows the sun. Like I said, it there are times when nighttime time conditions happen. It's just not as common. Um, Now, locally, I don't have a problem no matter what, day or night, locally. But when it comes down to skip conditions, that's the difference. You know, um, if like I'm like my buddy that lives about 40 miles away from me, I can talk to him like he's my next door neighbor, day or night, and it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Um, but like if I wanted to talk to somebody in Canada or down in the West Indies or into Europe or over in Australia, majority of the time, it follows the sun. Yeah, it uses the ionosphere. It bounces off the ionosphere. That's how HF works when it comes down to like the CB stuff. That's how HF works. It bounces off of the Earth and up to the ionosphere, back down, kind of like a wave on the beach. You know how the waves kind of like ripples on the water. That's how it works. That's how if you were to visualize it, that's how it works through the atmosphere. It ripples up and down, off the earth, up the ionosphere, back down, up and back, forth, back, forth. That's how it travels. Yeah, when it emanates out of your antenna, that's how it travels through the thing. So that's the best way Andy, that's the best way I can, like, if I was to visualize it, that's the best way I can explain it. Like if you had just just like an omnidirectional, which is like where the signal radiates out of your antenna 360 degrees around. Imagine like a pebble in a calm pond, and you make that ripple, and it kind of emanates from that center point and emanates out like a ripple. That's how it would look like coming out of your antenna if you could visualize it. That's how it would look like, you know. Yeah. Jinx. So, and that's the reason why I was like, when I was showing you this too, it's like I was showing you the map. That was the reason why I kind of drew these rings. Each one of these rings right here is like they're set at a distance. I did God, I can't remember. It's like I was doing the scale right here. It's like it's like from here to here is 10 miles, And when I did this, it's like each ring is 10 miles, you know. Um, and that is what I was doing. It's like, so it's like, you think about it, it's like 10, 20, 30, 40, or wait a minute, what was it? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, you know, something like that, because I think out here at Fort Walton, it's like about 100 miles or something like that. But anyways, close to 100 miles. Anyway, but that was the same thing. I did run this one too. But I couldn't get my compass to go that far. So I was like, I got a ring here, ring there, ring there, ring there, down to the center. And that just basically, it just shows how many miles, because I was using the scale, which is, here's the scale on this thing. Oh yeah, that's the scale right here. It's like from here to here is 300 miles. And I was doing this in 100-mile scales. So like, from here to that mile is 100 miles. That's 200 miles, 300 miles, 400 miles, 500 miles. I ran out where I couldn't stretch it out any further. So you think about it, from here to here, that's 500 miles. Anyway, that's an old map though. I mean, like I said, I'm eventually, I'll probably put a better one up there eventually. Because now I've got the wall space to put a better map up. But because I love maps. I do love maps, man. Oh, and I finally, hey Indy, now think about it. My sister gave me some things where I can build some shelves out of. So I've got a bunch of my books all up now. I finally got some books on my shelves and shit. You know, uh, finally, which is, it's nice to have. And you know, it's like 1984. Yeah, I got an old paperback version of that. Um, Here's like Nostradamus, the prophecies of Nostradamus. I got some cooking books here too. I got some old cooking books. Yeah, Campbell's cookbook, Easy Ways to Make Delicious Meals. Yeah, the old spiral binding type of book. Some old cookbooks. I got a book on dreams, a book on astrology. Um, I got an old Bible sitting right there. Um, the Jumbo Book of Duct Tape. It's like a whole bunch of different things you can do with duct tape. you know, I got an odd collection of books. I can tell you that. You know, um, here's a thing on electrician. The Uglies electrical reference book. If you're into electronics or any kind of electrical scenarios, because I'm interested in electrical stuff. Like at one time I wanted to do electrical engineering. That's the reason why I kind of like doing radios, because I mean, I like tinkering with electrical stuff. Oh, this is a good one, India. I don't know if you know this one. The government racket, Washington waste from A to Z. It's a good book. And I've got a bunch of other stuff too. I got survival books down here. I even got the zombie survival guide, the complete Protection from Living Dead. That's a must-have. You never know when the zombie apocalypse happens. Even the government's got zombie initiatives. If there was ever a zombie apocalypse, the government's already got shit on that. You know what they would do if there was a zombie apocalypse. They already have that. So, you know, whatever. You know, there's all kinds of stuff. I got a couple. I got the. Oh, this is a good one too. This is an old one. Country Wisdom and Know-How. Everything you need to know about living off the land. It's like 8,607 useful skills, steps, and step-by-step instructions. Yeah, it's a good book. But, you know, and then I've got even this too. It's like these are high school subjects, self-taught. I've got 1 through 4 volumes of this stuff. You know, different things. This one, oh yeah, this is a field guide for nighttime stuff. You know, like different constellations and stars. Because I like looking at the damn stars. You know, a book on nothing but stuff up in the sky. You know, and this is just I think I've got some more books too, but I just haven't gotten them all together yet. But I finally got a place to put them now, which is kind of cool. Because before they were all in different spots in storage and all this other shit. Yeah, that Country Wisdom book, that's a good book. Wolverine, it's a good book. I mean, it's got a lot of useful information in it. You wrote those down? I mean, there's a lot of different stuff. I mean, I've even got stuff that is not necessarily like a. I'll give you this here. There's another book right here. It's not something that everybody would have. Like I'll give you this one right here. Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft. Now, this is not something everybody would have, but I've got one. I've got this book. It's the Complete Book of Witchcraft. So yeah, I've got a lot of different stuff. This is the newer one, The Lost Ways. This is a good book. It's a good book. But because the radio stuff, there's a guy that writes this is the Guerrilla Guide to the Bofang radios. NC Scout does this. This is a good book when it comes down to the Bofangs. Good information to learn. I've got all kinds. I've even got survival books. The SAS survival book right here. It's all kinds of stuff. Like different things, like on how to make shelters and food and health. Medical stuff. How to make traps for stuff. What's edible, what's not edible. All kinds of stuff. And that it's SAS. I've even got some old military stuff too. I mean, I've got this is a soldier's manual, common task, skill level 1. Just a bunch of different things in there, but it's a military book. It's an old one though. It's an old one. It's like 1994 when that was put out. An old rifle manual on the M16 on how to everything you want to know about an M16. There's a lot of even got this like little thing right here. It's just nothing but knots. Book on knots. Every knot you can think of. Just nothing but knots and how to tie them. There's just information. I've got a very eclectic type of type of a library here, but you know, um, but I've got a lot of different information. Now, this is a pretty good book too. This is a thing called Hideaways. They got all these things, all these people that build like tree houses and cabins and stuff. Um, really cool places like gardening, different types of garden setups and garden hideaways. You know, look at that. Some nice trees there too. You know, just some beautiful places. This is a really nice looking book, a really nice book too. Really beautiful places in that thing. Hideaways, you know. Cooking with a Dutch oven. You know, I've got it's a book on nothing but Dutch oven cooking and recipes. Um, pretty neat stuff there. You know, you know, stuff like that. You know, I like the especially cookbooks. Every time I go into a thrift store or something like that, I'm always looking around for stuff like that. You know, like old cookbooks and stuff like that. Because you know, some of those damn recipes are just being lost because nobody knows how to cook anymore. You know what I mean? And I'm always trying to learn a little bit because I mean, shit. You know, I'm not the best cook in the world, but I mean, you know, I want to be able to, you know, cook from scratch if I need to, and I like to have recipes of stuff and stuff like that. I mean, I've got some recipes from my mom, you know, that she used to do all the time. That you know, she had a whole like uh card catalog full of recipes and stuff, you know, and I like there's an old recipe that you know of cornbread that's been passed down for a couple of generations, man. That I have, um, you know, things like that. You know, I think, and you know, and as see, I'm gonna tell you, you know, there's a lot of stuff when it comes down to it that I have this in the back of my mind. If the electricity was to go out and everything was to go down, you know, there's a lot of that knowledge that is in that analog written down in a book. I'm not going to have to go back on the internet and try and find these things. I've got an actual book on these things with pictures and explanations and recipes and all that stuff. So, I mean, these are just my analog version of the information, you know what I mean? Because I mean, you know, I cannot be reliant on the internet. I cannot be reliant on my cell phone to be here. If it goes down, the electricity goes down, the internet goes down, the cell phones go down, you know, there's what do you got? You need to have a library of stuff. You know, it's like even like maps. You know, I love maps. I've got a whole bunch of different maps. I got atlases. I got all kinds of shit just for that reason. Because I mean, you know, I cannot rely on GPS. You know what I'm saying? Um, Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you something, Indy. I mean, that's a good thing to know. I mean, honestly, knots and stuff like that, and it's something that would be a project that would be awesome project with you and your kids. You know, because I mean, it reminds me of being back in Boy Scouts or something like that. You know what I mean? It's a useful knowledge that can be useful your entire life. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I don't know. Yeah, I like maps. Let me tell you, I like I said, I was like, I've got some old ones too somewhere. I don't remember where I fucking put them. I think I got them. Where did I put them? Down here somewhere. I got some old maps somewhere. Oh yeah, here's a couple of them. Federal lands of the 50 states. This is just it's like the federal lands of the 50 states. This is a National Geographic Society map. Gosh, I can't see a date. Oh, 1996. This is when this was put out. But all the different spots of the federal lands and stuff like that. You know, um, eventually I'll probably hang that up on the wall. I mean, this is if you can get, you know, more of a topographical type look on the backside. You know, but I've got a few more different like that, more like National Geographic type maps. And like I said, I got an atlas, a road atlas, because like I said, I don't rely on GPS. I use these type of maps all my life. This is, if I want to go somewhere, this is exactly what I use is stuff like this. I don't use GPS. Um, so I mean, and let's see. I got a couple more maps down here somewhere. There's this one. Oh, this is a map in Afghanistan. It's a Afghanistan map. This is something back in the. This is a military map actually, but it's a map of Afghanistan. Different stuff. That was back when my brother was in the military. Afghan map. Um, let's see. This one. Can't remember what this one is. Oh, this one. This is the picture on the backside, but it's showing like the ships from back in the day. The cargo ships, how they were, how they looked, and like a cutaway version of it. You can see all the different storage areas. But this was a map of where a lot of lost treasures of the world that were found. This is it's got all the different places around the world where treasure have been found, and this is all showing different stuff. But this is I can't remember when this was. Um, I can't remember when this map was made. Put it that way. But a lot of different, all the different shipwrecks and stuff like that around. Like for instance, down here in Florida. Because when I was living in the Keys, there's a lot of shipwrecks, like Spanish shipwrecks and stuff like that down in the coast of Florida and stuff like that. And I was really interested in that because I wanted to find some old Spanish gold. I knew a guy that actually found some Spanish gold off of Key West, actually. But, yeah, maps are a good thing to know, and that's a lot. Becoming, especially the newer generation, it's becoming a lost art. They don't know how to get around if they don't have fucking GPS. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that you know. Um, that's something that you gotta. I think that has to be. Um, like I said, I mean, it might be something that could be interesting to your children. Indy, kind of like something like that. Even just pulling out a map like that and then looking at it and seeing things, even if it's just a road map, you know what I mean? Or even like, just like some of those old maps and stuff. It's like or like an old world map or something. And just I think kids would be very interested in that kind of thing, because I know I was when I was a kid. I mean, I I used to make maps actually when I was younger. I used to be really good at it actually, making maps on my, stuff like that. So I mean, um, it gets them off of the internet. Put it that way. It gets them off of fucking GPS. Gets them off of that shit. Because I mean, if everything did go down, you got to know how to read a paper map. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you got that. The shipwrecks and all that stuff, all the treasures and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I, there's so much stuff that's been found over the years, and still there's so much stuff that hasn't been found. There's still a lot of Spanish gold here in America that has not been found yet. Or technically, it wasn't Spanish gold; it was actually the Native Americans' gold, and the Spanish wanted to take it from them. But there's still a lot of gold that still has not been found to this day from back in the day. When Spain was invaded and all that shit. Through the West Indies and South America, and um, especially down in the West Indies. There's a lot of shipwrecks back then from that had Spanish gold on it. A lot of European gold. The ships that got sunk that still hasn't been found to this day. There's still a lot of people out there that are shipwreck hunters and stuff like that, still searching for a lot of these old wrecks that just disappeared one day and either got swallowed up by a storm or pirates or whatever. And there's a lot of stuff too, even pirates and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that they hid and was never found again because they all died. You know what I mean? So I mean, there's still a lot of stuff that still hasn't been found to this day. It would be so freaking cool. I mean, it would be cool one day. I'm just out there digging one day and come up on a damn chest or something like that full of fucking old Spanish gold or old, gold from, the British colonists or whatever. Um, or even pirate, you know, the old pirate booty. That would be awesome. That would be so freaking awesome. And I sure as hell wouldn't tell the government a goddamn thing about it. I wouldn't tell them nothing. Finders keepers type of shit. What's up, Ron? I didn't see you in there. Good to see you there, Ron. And Indy, like I said, things like that. I think it would be, it's something, especially when your kids are young. I think they would be really interested in things like that. Like, just learning how to make a knot, different types of knots. Just, pulling out one of them big maps out there on the floor and looking at them and stuff like that. I think they would just be mesmerized by things like that. Um, you know, and these are skills. That's why I was talking about, when it comes down to the prepping community, I think a lot of people really, unfortunately, a lot of people they depend on, having a lot of food and water and all this other stuff, and depending on that, that's well and good, but that's a diminishing resource. If you have skills, see, all that stuff can fit in your head. You know what I mean? Um, and these are skills in my mind. It's like um, and these are things that could be useful all through your life. Like I said, even just tying knots, knowing different knots is a good thing. Just knowing different knots and stuff like that is always, can come handy all through your life, different situations. Um, you know, or just knowing how to, cook a meal, how to follow a recipe, you know. No, you got you got a notification, Ron? I'm surprised that anybody got any notifications. Good to see that. Good. And that's the thing, Wolverine. It's like, all those things can fit in your head and it won't weigh a single ounce. It won't, you won't have to carry it in your backpack. It's like, like for instance, if it came down to the point you had to bug out for some reason, and you can only carry so much, you know what I'm saying? Because, things weigh a lot. You can only carry so much in your backpack. But if you've got a whole bunch of skills, you can carry that in your head. There's a lot of that stuff you won't have to carry in your backpack, and so it's important. It's like, just the simple things on how to make a fire. You know, that's something else too. It's like, I mean, I went through rites of passage all through my childhood on how to make fires. You know what I'm saying? I learned how to make fires at a very early age. You know what I mean? And just simple things like that. It's like, that's what I think, you know, people, if they're really thinking about the prepping type of mentality, I really think they need, and especially if they've got kids, I really think that they need to take them out into the woods and go camping, you know, and experience it away from fucking cell phones, away from the goddamn internet, away from all that shit. Just go out in the woods, teach them simple things like starting a fire, on the safety aspects of it also. You know what I mean? This is how you learn the how to safely make a fire, how to keep a fire safe, for instance. Just simple things like that. Not just making the fire. You know what I mean? How to set up a tent, how to you know how to how to put a tarp up. You know, um, how would you cook your food, and stuff like that. Just simple, basic stuff like that. Um, and kids really do like that. Some kids are weird though. Some kids don't like to be out in the woods and they're scared shitless and stuff like that. But I'm gonna tell you something, man. It builds character. Even if it is scary for the child at the moment, I'm I'm gonna tell you something. If they suffer through it in a sense, they'll appreciate it more. The more that, especially the more you do it, the more I think, even if they were scared at first, they will love it down the line. They would enjoy it. They would want to go camping and stuff like that. Because I mean, I know it can be scary at first for some, but you can make things fun. Like, just going out and collecting firewood can be a fun activity. You know what I mean? Um, or, it's like, like if your child is like, let's say you got a 5 or 6, 7 year old or something like that, and they have their own tent. It's their tent. And they know how to pitch their own tent. They've got their own sleeping bag. It's their own personal sleeping bag, and their own personal backpack. Some kids really just they 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 see that as a really fun activity, or at least when I was young, I did. You know what I mean? And I know other kids would too. I know other kids do. It's just that, especially today in this day and age now, it just seems like that's not happening enough. I mean, there are parents out there that do that kind of thing. It doesn't happen as much as it used to. You know what I mean? It just seems like there's too many kids that all they do is just sit in the house on the, playing video games. They're on the internet, on their cell phones and shit like that. They don't get outside. Hell, they don't even camp out in their backyard. You know what I mean? Um, so I mean, it's one of them things, you know what I'm saying? These are activities I think kids would just enjoy, and it's lasting memories also. That's another thing too. You got to think about it also. You're creating memories. You know what I'm saying? You're creating memories when you do that, because those kids will remember those things for the rest of their lives. Those moments. I remember when you know my dad would take us camping, or we would go fishing when we were kids. See, these are memories that I'd never forgot. You know what I'm saying? Um, and that's just, it's something that I think it's lacking in today's society, or today's people right now. It's like, you know, you got to get away from all this bullshit on the internet and all this other stuff on computers and stuff. Get away from it all. Get back to nature. That's where it's at, because that's where that's where you are more in connection with the creator, and I think that's important. You know, go back to analog. All this digital shit is really fucking everybody up, I think. Damn, it's fucking raining really hard out there now. Fuck. I was kind of hoping it's my uncle would, me and him would go to the dollar store. I was kind of hoping we'd do that today, but I guess not. Yeah, Ron, I'm all right. I could be better. I could be worse. I'm doing okay, I guess. But like I said, I mean, it's just now starting to rain. It's really fucking hot out here. But starting to come down now. But we needed it. It hasn't rained for a few months now, so all this, all the grass and stuff like that really needed it. It was starting to turn brown, so it's good to have. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing too, Wolverine. I'm gonna tell you something, man. Getting back to basics. I think that's a very important thing. Getting back to the basics. What's really important, what creates what creates especially with children, what creates memories for the rest of their lives, and then, there's skills that could benefit them and they can be utilized all their life. Because there's so much useless crap out there right now, you know what I mean? Uh, that really has no importance through your life. But just get back to the basics. Get back to to what's naturally in your connection with the creator. Well, you have a good one out there, Wolverines. You have a good one out there. Um, I got to get out there eventually. Whenever, now sometime probably when the weather gets cool off, I got to chop some firewood up. When it gets cooled out, when it gets cooler, I got to have some firewood to put in the damn fire. I appreciate you coming in, dude. I do. But it's even though Ron, I know you just got here, but it's going on 2 hours and 30 minutes, 34 minutes or whatever. And but I might take off in a little while. Um, because I wasn't planning on doing a very long live to at all. I was thinking about doing a short one, just walking around the pond and back, but turned out to be a little longer than I originally thought. But I don't know. Definitely going to sit in here try and enjoy the air conditioning and stay out of that damn rain for a little while. Yeah, yeah. And I'm gonna tell you, Ron. Yeah, these are definitely um activities that like I said, if you've got kids, for instance, these are activities that you can do with your kids that'll get them off the internet, that will get them off off your cell phones and video games and all that shit. These are activities that you can do with your kids that you guys can have fun and create memories that would last a lifetime. And also it would create valuable skills, like learning how to fish, how to bait your hook, how to put a worm on your hook, how to clean a fish. You know what I mean? Like trapping. It's good to know those skills. So if you got into a situation that you could do that, I mean, in America, for some reason, because I mean, there's just there's no telling what you can catch in a trap because they're just not biased at all. So they've made it illegal when it comes down to everywhere. When it comes down to it, is putting traps out. But if it got down to a situation where you needed to gather food like that using traps, it is nice to know that skill and learn how that. See, that's just and knowing, like, even your general area where you live, the wild plants that grow around you, knowing which ones are those that are edible, which ones are those that are poisonous, which one is of those that you can use to build a shelter with, which ones are those that you can use that could be medicinal, like for instance, like like you got a cold or something. What plants that grow around your local area, wild, that you can use like in a tea that would be good for a cold, or um, like I was showing on another live when I was out walking around. Um, there's a yucca plant. I think it's called a yucca plant, but it's like but it back in the Native Americans, the Seminole Indians here in Florida, they would use this plant as basically like a sewing kit. They would use this plant, to create like a needle and thread, and that's how they would use it to, like, sew up, their clothing or their moccasins or something like that. And see, you know these are skills and tricks that you can use in the wild. Like, for instance, if you needed something like that, you were out in the woods of this area, and you needed to repair some clothing or something like that. You don't have a needle and thread. Well, you've got a natural needle and thread growing out there in the woods. You know what I'm saying? Um, so these are, and this something that, if you had kids, for instance, and you were out on a camping trip or something like that, these are things that you can, show your kids. And it's like, okay, this plant right here is edible, this plant right here is poisonous. These are the, so they can see the difference. and and this could be something like a fun activity to do, that could, get your kids engaged and, in learning something at the same time and having fun doing it. Um, you know, um, just simple things like that. The simple life, the simple, because I mean, there's a lot of benefits from the simple life. I admire the Amish. I admire their lifestyle. I don't know. I've just never lived that type of lifestyle. I mean, especially in the religious aspect. I mean, I'm not really into that, but their lifestyle, the simple lifestyle, I admire it. I've never lived it, but I mean, I know the benefits and the stuff that really gets you more in tune with nature and the creator. That's the important part of it. And then also knowing how to work, the land and how, like how I was taught how to drive at the age of 10, you know. They're learning how to work a team of horses at the age of 6, you know what I'm saying? Which is just wild to me, you know what I mean? I mean, literally, they got 6-year-olds learning how to manipulate a team of horses, you know. It's just, to me, it's also, you know, these are skills and activities that they can learn at a young age that can be useful their entire lives, especially if you live in that type of thing. You know what I mean? Like I said, I kind of admire because I mean, when it comes down to like even the cooking part of it, I mean, there are things that like the Amish do that is like, cooking from scratch. Cooking from scratch just doesn't happen all that much anymore. You know, I remember when my mom and my grandmother all cooked from scratch. You know what I'm saying? All getting all the basic ingredients together to create a meal. That just is that type of stuff is just dying out. And that we cannot let it die. You know what I'm saying? Simple things like that. I mean, um, I didn't. I tried to learn some things like from my mom, but even then, it's like it's like I want to know more about how to cooking from scratch myself. Because like if I ever, which I doubt I'll ever have kids, but if I ever had kids, that would be something that it'd be an activity that I can do with my kids that they can participate in and they can learn that, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I would like, I want to, for myself, I want to know how to make my own bread, you know what I mean, from scratch. And I want to be able to do that for myself. All right. And that would be something that I would like to be able to teach if I had kids. That would be something that I would like to be able to teach my kids. They can get in the kitchen and they can participate and they can learn, like, okay, this is how we make bread. You know what I mean? And I mean, and something that they can enjoy doing, something they can, you know, that's something they would that's part of that knowledge that they can keep with them for the rest of life. And then also at the same time, while you're doing that, you're creating memories. You're creating memories with those children. You know what I'm saying? Because those children will remember that for the rest of their lives, sitting in the kitchen, getting their hands in there, kneading the dough or whatever, with their mom or or their dad or whatever. In the, these, it's just creating memories. And I think that's very important, and I think that's the reason why I really don't like the internet and video games and all this other shit, because what memories are you creating with that? There is none. That doesn't create anything productive, nothing constructive, nothing positive comes from that, in my opinion. So um, you know, and it also just gets us further and further away from the family unit, you know. It just drives me nuts, how quote unquote society is moving toward this shit, and further and further away from what is important. I don't know. Like I said, I'll probably never have kids, but if I did, I'd like to be able to do that with them, you know. Um, 'Cause I mean, I think it's awesome. I see some of these, parents that had these kids in there, and these kids are riding around on dirt bikes and shit, and or whatever. I just think it's awesome. I was sitting there watching this one video of this guy that's got this, like, five-year-old kid running around, riding around on a dirt bike, which what I used to do when I was a kid too, riding around on a dirt bike out there just hauling ass, and he would fucking fall off that thing and just stand up giggling, and it's like, "Whoa!" He's fucking happy. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, yeah, that was what we used to do when we were kids. And I just love seeing today's kids doing that. And it's not a common thing. It's not like it used to be. It's not as common as it used to be. This is a rarity seeing that, and that's what I think is unfortunate, because that used to be a common type of thing back in the day. But nowadays, I just love seeing parents that have kids and they're doing that kind of thing, and because it's basically keeping that type of thing alive, you know what I'm saying? And and I love seeing parents that are getting engaged with their kids on that level, you know. Because like I said, that 5-year-old riding that damn dirt bike, that's a memory that he'll have for the rest of his fucking life, of a time that he had a blast. He fucking had so much fucking fun, you know what I mean? I just, like I said, it's just creating memories, something that we can have for the rest of our lives. But anyway, I'm hoping I'm creating a memory now. Y'all have a good one out there. I am going to go ahead and take off and probably wander around YouTube or whatever. I don't know. I might make me some food actually while I'm thinking about it. And I will get up with you guys down the line. And Indy, I will catch up with you later on tonight when you go backstage. So when you get around to that point, when you get backstage or whatever, send me the link, text me or whatever, um, and I'll see you then. But everybody else that came into the chat tonight, today, y'all have a good one. I appreciate everybody that came in. Ron, I know you came in late, but I appreciate you coming in, dude. Um, Everybody else, it's like I think, what was it? Wolverine, uh, Blackwatch, Snooks, um, Golden Gate, SC, Huckleberry, C4T, Hogtown, Freedom March, all you guys, everybody that came in, I appreciate everybody. Y'all have a good one. The double one, double two, Wingnut Radio, and I'm back out.